it's your girl, Carla Renata, aka the Curvy Film Critic. Welcome back to episode number 140 of these bad boys, right here on YouTube and streaming eventually on Facebook Live. I am your host, Carla Renata, and what we do here is I interview and do reviews of titles and people above and below the line. I didn't say that right, but y'all get the point. So as usual, give me a big old thumbs up to let me know you were here. Click that bell for notifications if you're on YouTube. Like and subscribe to the channel so that you can hear everything I have to say about every single solitary movie and the people in them here on the Curvy Critic with Carla Renata. So as usual, I always start out my week talking about what I did. So this week, y'all, I attended the Black wedding of the year. That's right. I attended the wedding of Earl and Ruby on Blackish. And thanks to ABC, they sent me a fantabulous meal from a plethora of different African-American restaurants. And it's part of an organization, part of a initiative called Feed the Soul, where they give 58%, I think, of the proceeds in donating them rather to Feed the Soul. And all of those restaurants were Black-owned, Black-operated restaurants. The food was off the chain. I had some salmon and a nice little salad and some plantains and some garlic noodles. It was the bomb.com. It was great. I loved it. In addition to the Blackish wedding, y'all know that my boy, the Fresh Prince, came back on TV this week. They did a reunion, and it was a tale of two Aunt Vivs. Now, y'all know there was always that big old fight between Janet Hubert and, not fight, but Janet Hubert and Will Smith had a disagreement, I should say. And so as a result of that, people were like, ooh, is the old Aunt Viv going to be there? But he reached out to Janet Hubert. They had a nice little talk. It was very touching, very moving. So if you have not seen that, check it out. It is a reboot, a reliving, a reimagining, a revisit of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air with my boy Will Smith. I love that show so very much. And then after we left A Tale of Two Aunt Vivs, Amazon Prime did they sponsored a drive-through over in Inglewood. So what happened is they invited a bunch of journalists over there to drive through this exhibit that they had. And at the end of the exhibit, they gave you a meal. Now, I'm not going to lie, Amazon Prime, I thought there I am in my car. My mother's in there too, but you can't quite see her. But that's part of the exhibit behind me. And what they did was they gave me a box of food. Now, I thought, oh, this is nice. I had to cook the food myself. Y'all see that raw chicken in that picture? I was like, ooh, Amazon, y'all duped the sister. Y'all made me think that I was going to have a box full of jerk chicken. Well, I cooked it and it came out fantabulous. That's how it came out. It looks like somebody took a professional picture, right? No, I took that with my iPhone, but I kind of loved it. It was wonderful. It was jerk chicken. It was some rice, cauliflower, some string beans with some tomatoes. It had lentils in the rice, cauliflower chow. It tasted like I had my own personal Jamaican restaurant up in here. And I'll talk about small acts a little later. The NABJ regional conference happened this week. I am a member of NABJ. NABJ stands for those of you who don't know, the National Association of Black Journalists. And we did a panel on the new red carpet, same old issues. It was moderated by my sister in the struggle, Katia Woods, Joe Williams, and Latasha DeVoe, who are publicists, were also part of that discussion. So if you are an NABJ member and you registered for the conference, the content is still up where you can watch the sessions and the workshops, and they're still up online now where you can watch that. Also, when I was growing up, I loved this show called Saved by the Bell. It gave me all the feels and gave me my entire life. So of course, Peacock TV sent me a little box with all the Saved by the Bell goodies in it. And I'm actually going to give this away to somebody at some point as a thank you, for tuning in and hanging out with a sister. So let me take this time now before I get into the content to thank everybody that is in the chat room. My boy Brandon is always here. Michael B, how y'all doing? Hey, Kazuza. And yes, the food was very yummy. And I'm tried to get around to the new Animaniacs Brandon, but I didn't get around to it this week, but I'll talk about that next week. Yeah, so that's it. So let me get into this first review that I want to talk about. Y'all, this literally was the blackest week I ever had as a film critic. It was blackety black, black, black. And I have to laugh because I'm so used to seeing so many films with us not in them that in the last 2 weeks, I have seen more movies with Black people in them. I mean, in quality film too, like off the chain, off the charts, wonderful, fantabulous projects. So one of the projects that I saw was this film called Between the World and Me. Now, I talk about Howard University all the time. I am a Howard University Bison, HU. You know, the real HU Hampton people don't be coming for me on my timeline. But I am Howard University, and I'm proud that I went there. I'm proud of anybody else that went there. I spoke with Felicia Rashad earlier this year. She's a Howard alum, Debbie Allen, Chadwick Boseman, so many people. Well, honey, Howard University is having a resurgence this year because between Chadwick Boseman and Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Kamala Harris being elected as Vice President of the United States, and Ta-Nehisi Coates' new project, Between the World and Me, based on his book by the same name, Howard University getting they do this year. So I got really behind in the preparation for my show today because I watched Between the World and Me this morning. It is currently streaming on HBO right now. It is directed by Camila Forbes, and all of the content, of course, is from Ta-Nehisi's book, Between the World and Me. This is what I want to say about that project. I was all in my feelings, and I had to decompress from it because as a Black person in America right now, it's very deep, it's very raw, it's very real. And he dedicated the book and he dedicates the film to the memory of Prince Jones, who was also a Howard University student that was chased across 3 states and shot and killed, like so many of our Black brothers and sisters that have been shot and killed over the course of years. And when the credits rolled, there was, I want to say, at least a 2 to 3 minute scroll of all the names of all of the Black people that have been shot and killed due to a police officer killing for no reason. And when I saw that, I just sobbed. And I say that to say that this is why this project is so very powerful. All of those people, all of those friends of mine that are not Black, that are white, that are, Indian, that are Asian, that are Latino, Latina, all of those people that reached out to me in the last 6 to 8 months asking me, what can I do? What can I say? Help me understand. Can you explain this to me? And I just didn't have the bandwidth to do that. Ta-Nehisi Coates' Between the World and Me will do that for me. And for every other Black person that felt what I felt and is feeling what I'm feeling. It is taking the initiative to let people know that this system that we live in makes your body breakable. And when I say that, the system that we live in, the policing system that we live in, the system of racism that we live in makes your body breakable. You can destroy us. People can destroy us, kill us, beat us, do all these things to us, and they can still receive pensions and still keep their jobs. And this is common for Black people. It's common for us, but it's not old. And so it's a situation where people outside of the Black race have made us into a race, and we made ourselves into a people. And these are all of the ideologies and all of the things that are being said in Between the World and Me. I'm telling you, you're going to have a visceral reaction to it because I certainly did. It is called Between the World and Me. It is written by Ta-Nehisi Coates. It is directed by Camila Forbes, and it is currently streaming on HBO right now. Do yourselves a favor and check it out if you have the opportunity to do so. All right. So last week I told y'all I was going to be doing an interview with Aneesh Chaganty and one of his producers, Natalie. I can't pronounce her last name, so I'm not going to mess it up, but Natalie. And Run is a film that I will get into afterwards because I waited for this to review it. So I want you to take a look and a listen to this interview with Aneesh and Natalie, and then I'll review it right after that. I know y'all work together on Searching. I love that movie so much. I just had to say that at the beginning. And I love Run too. Run had me, I jumped a couple of times. I'm like, why am I jumping? Why am I jumping? But this is the thing. I felt some vibes of like a Hitchcock Rear Window thing happening and like a little Misery thing happening. And I love the tagline that truth can be a hard pill to swallow. But what I want to ask both of you together is, where did you find Kira? Because she's freaking amazing.
From the beginning when we wrote the film, we knew that it was just a no-brainer that we were going to cast a disabled actor because the role was a disabled character. So there was, the harder part was finding her, but the decision to do it was pretty much obvious to us from the beginning. And the hunt for her was huge. We had a really great casting director, Rich Delia, who sort of put the feelers out to the whole world. It felt like, after school programs, disability programs, art programs, Facebook, and we were just getting tapes from all these disabled actors basically all around America or parts of the world. They'd be sending us tapes, and we got to see hundreds of tapes. And then one day we saw a tape from a girl who was recording from her Columbia University dorm room, and she delivered a really natural performance, and her name was Kira. And all of a sudden, we were flying her out to LA, and she was meeting Sarah Paulson, and Sarah loved her. And then we basically felt like we discovered a star and brought her to Winnipeg to shoot the movie.
Well, yeah, you did discover a star. Speaking of Sarah Paulson, Natalie, Sarah Paulson has this reputation now for being, in that Ryan Murphy camp of horror, American Horror Story, and all these kinds of things. Was she a natural fit for this project for you guys, or did you guys look at some other people before you settled on Sarah?
She was a natural fit. I mean, we're all such fans of her body of work, and she can do the horror and the Ryan Murphy stuff, but she can do nuance and, grounded, and she can just do everything. And for us, that was, it was just so exciting that she was even interested in checking out the script. We were all like, honestly, I was fangirling personally. But yeah, and it's such a layered performance, and it really requires so much nuance. And we always say, like, with one look, Sarah conveys just so much, and you really get to see that in this film. And I hope everyone who's a fan of hers enjoys it as much as I do.
Oh, yeah, I enjoyed it very much. And while I got you, Natalie, I understand you love chocolate. Am I right in that assessment?
I love chocolate more than a lot of things, yes.
And what's your favorite? Is it dark chocolate, milk chocolate?
Milk Cadbury chocolate.
Oh, that's specific. She was like milk Cadbury chocolate.
Yeah.
I kind of love you for that. I'm a dark chocolate girl myself, so there's that.
Dark is good.
But I really wanted to know where the idea from this came from, because it's so super specific.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of it that's sort of like, ripped from the headlines in a way. But when we, there's a headline in specific that we don't want to spoil or anything, but we just thought to ourselves like, oh, okay, if that one element of that headline was a secret that one character was keeping from another character, all of a sudden you got like the groundwork for what could be a very Hitchcockian movie. Something that was very intimate, only two characters, one house. And that's something that I really wanted to do after Searching, which was so complex and so much of a gimmick, even though one that worked. I just wanted to prove to myself that I could make something the opposite, something simple and classic and timeless, and show myself that I knew how to make a movie. And those two sort of things happening at the same time, we just were like, okay, let's go off on this journey.
What was that conversation like for you when Aneesh came to you and said, look at the script? Because this is what I noticed about it. I noticed that there were things happening with these two female characters that had to have a feminine touch to it. And I appreciated it. I appreciated that in watching it. So I wanted to know just how much of a feminine touch did you throw up on this project?
No, it was very exciting for me. I remember commenting a little bit on a couple of female isms that I thought should be more there or less there. And they took those notes to their credit. But I have to say, they know how to write strong female characters, which is very cool.
And also having, two women as the lead actors, you start to take their opinions as well. So.
Well, I appreciated the film. It was wonderful. I'm looking forward to other people seeing it. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to speak to me. I wholeheartedly appreciated it. And I look forward to whatever y'all do next, because I am in the camp, Natalie Aneesh camp, yo.
Thank you, Gurl. It's very nice of you to say.
It's the truth. All right. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks again, Aneesh and Natalie, for taking time for me. I really, really did appreciate it. Now let's talk a little bit about Run. Run is this film that is done by Lionsgate in association with Hulu that stars Sarah Paulson and Kira Allen, as we discussed. And Kira Allen plays a homeschooled teen who suspects her mother is keeping a secret. It's giving me Rear Window Misery vibes, like I said in the interview. And Kira Allen's performance in this film is like, Sarah Paulson is, she's Sarah Paulson, but Kira Allen is letting us have it, baby. There is a scene when she is on the roof, dragging herself across the roof, and she is a disabled teen in real life. This is not someone that is an able-bodied actor pretending to be disabled. Kira really is a disabled actor. So I give my hats off to Natalie. I give my hats off to Aneesh, Lionsgate, and Hulu for listening to that community and finding someone who actually is in that lane and can bring it, like we have been saying so many times over so many years. So kudos to them for finally paying attention to that. This film was a thriller. It was suspenseful. It was written really well. It was shot really well. I enjoyed it immensely. So again, it is called Run. It is currently streaming on Hulu right now, and it is directed by Aneesh Chaganty. Now, if you don't know his name or that name sounds familiar to you, I think either last year or year before last, there was a film called Searching with John Cho. I think I called him something else last week, but it's John Cho. And John Cho was in that film called Searching, and Aneesh Chaganty wrote and directed that. So check that out. Now, I've had David Oyelowo on the show before. Last time we talked about a film that he did called The Waterman, and he's been kind of in this like children fantasy lane lately, which I kind of love. But as part of the AFCA roundtable, the African American Film Critics Association roundtable, they did a roundtable with David to talk about his newest film called Come Away. And I've talked about Come Away on this show before. It's like a prequel to Peter Pan and Alice in Wonderland, but with Black people. And I was there for all of that. So take a look and a listen to this interview with David Oyelowo from Come Away.
Hi, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again. So, I talked to you during The Waterman, and you seem to be drawn to these stories that have like this fantastical, childlike type of theme lately. Not all the time, but lately. Yeah. And so I'm just interested to know, was there a moment in your childhood that your parents did something or said something that shaped and fostered your creativity, leading you into the world of film entertainment? And are you doing that for your children?
Yeah, I absolutely. It was actually not something that they said. It was something they did. When I was 6, even though I was born in the UK, we moved back to Nigeria, and I lived in Nigeria from the age of 6 to 13. So I had the privilege of living in a country, a community, and in a society where I was not the minority. I was part of the majority. I was normal. I was king and pauper, I was, and everything in between. I wasn't sort of sectioned off as a minority, as someone who in some way was being affected by the color of my skin every single day. And that really stuck with me when I then moved back to the UK. And now, having lived in America for 13 years, I've held on to the fact that it should be normal for me to feel like I am normal and not marginalized. That's not the reality, but it should be. And I felt what that feels like because of living in Nigeria for a time. And so these projects I'm drawn to, I even though I loved Amblin movies, or I loved Goonies, Stand By Me, Neverending Story, E.T., Close Encounters, all these great films that we grew up loving, I never really saw myself represented in them. And, you know, I don't cast aspersions on those people who made those films. They were doing what they know. But now that I'm being given a platform, all I'm asking is the opportunity to exercise my own bias, which is to see myself reflected in a way that I would have loved to have seen when I was younger. And so that choice my parents made of taking us back to Nigeria has absolutely affected how I approach storytelling. And, you know, whether it's Come Away or The Waterman, these are films I'm effectively making for my 12-year-old self. I know that if I had seen those as a kid, it would have slightly reshaped how I saw the world. You know, I often tell this story about my son, who, when he was 12, and I told him that I was going to be in a Disney movie called Queen of Cartway, his first reaction was to ask me if I was going to be playing the best friend in the film. And that just shocked me, because that was clearly something to do with how he perceived a Black person in a Disney movie, the nature of the role they get to play. And so I have determined that I am going to do everything I can that is no longer a notion he has, and certainly not the notion that his children are going to have.
I appreciate you for that. Thank you so, so very much.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thanks, Carla.
Of course, that conversation could have gone on for hours, because when he talks about, again, representation and seeing yourself, how much of a difference that makes, and how he's watching his own children, you know, come to that realization is everything. So yeah, thank you, David Oyelowo and Afka, for giving me the opportunity to talk to him about that. Again, you guys, Come Away is streaming right now, and it stars David Oyelowo and Angelina Jolie as his wife. I know, right? That's a lot going on. So let's see, what else did I want to talk about? Oh yeah. So Brandon, this one's for you. This one's for you, Brandon. The Croods too, New Age. Honey, the Croods gave me everything. They gave me life. I took this little picture of me and the Sloths, which was hilarious. I loved it so very much. The Croods is a film that is directed by Joel Crawford. It's on Universal Pictures. It is streaming for Thanksgiving. I was about to say right now, but no, it's not. It's streaming on Thanksgiving. So this is a great film to spend time with the family with when we do this this Thanksgiving, because it's looking a little different this year because of quarantine, COVID-19, and have you. But what Universal Pictures is doing is they are working in tandem with feedingamerica.org. So every time a fan of the film does a tweet on Twitter, specifically on Twitter, and you use the hashtag Croods Care, CROODSCARE, Croods Care on Twitter, they are going to match funds and donate it directly to Feeding America, to the Feeding America website. And if you want to go and donate yourself, you can go directly to their page, feedingamerica.org. So let's just talk about this film. Because I had watched Between the World and Me, I needed something light and fluffy to lift my spirits, honey, and this did it. No, what are you asking me on Disney Plus, Michael B? But it was hilarious. And so it deals with, we saw the Croods before. This time, Eve and Guy are getting serious. They're talking about getting married. Her daddy is having none of it. And he spends the entire film trying to keep them apart until he realizes that that Guy really does make Eve happy. And that at the end of the day, as a father, he just wants to see his daughter happy. They did this thing called, when there was some trouble for the Croods, the guys got into trouble. And of course the girls came to their rescue. So I love the theme of having, you know, men fighting as men do, and having women come to the rescue to save them. And they called themselves the Thunder Sisters. It was Fireheart, Sister Sunset, Bloodhorn, Seeker, and Wiggasus. And I loved me some Wiggasus. She was the grandma, and homegirl would pull her wig up and there'd be like some kind of critter under there. That made me holler out loud. It was really funny. There was a lovely mix of 70s and 90s love tunes, and the one that they used throughout the film is like a staple hook was I think I love you, that David Cassidy song, I think I love you, that song right there. So they did that, and then they did a remake of it in the end credits with Tenacious D. It was everything. It was very vibrant. The whole tomorrow scene was very vibrant colors, and it's corny, but it's fun. It's a lot of fun. So again, you guys, on Thanksgiving Day, you can see the Croods 2 by Universal Pictures, Croods 2, A New Age by Universal Pictures, directed by Joel Crawford. All right, so that is that. And now I'm going to play this interview that I wanted to play last week, but I ran out of time. So this is Riz Ahmed talking about his role as Ruben in Sound of Metal. And I reviewed Sound of Metal before, so I won't review it again, but I did enjoy having this conversation with Riz. So take a look and a listen to my interview with Riz Ahmed from Sound of Metal. Riz, I'm all down for the red sweater, dude. That's a really, it's matching the artwork in the background. You got it all popping off color-wise.
Thank you.
I love all of that. Let me tell you something. I loved you as Ruben in Sound of Metal.
Thank you so much.
The range of emotions that you had to tap into to pull this character off was just mind-boggling. What did you have to do to pull that off for yourself? Because it was exquisite to watch.
Thank you so much. I mean, I guess, the script is just beautiful. It's just beautiful writing from Darius Marder. And when you read a script like that, it just triggers something in you. It takes you to that personal place. Then when you're working with an amazing team like we had with Darius and Olivia Cook and Paul Racy, Lauren Ridloff, all these kind of first-time actors from the deaf community, that also plays a factor. Do you feel safe enough to go to a vulnerable place on set? And I think the realness and the connection and the authenticity on set really was conducive to us all opening up and going to those places,
Yeah.
So I think it's always a group vibe and dynamic that can create some of those, the opening for you to open up in.
When I was a student at Howard University, I lived in Northeast DC, and I used to drive by Gallaudet College all the time. So I would see the kids outside doing their sign language, and I'm like, I need to get in on that conversation, but because it looked like it was so much fun. But in shooting Sound of Metal, do you think that your perception of what you thought the deaf community was shifted as a result of being in this film?
Tremendously, yeah. And I think that I hope the audience's perceptions will also shift. There is not one deaf community. Deaf community is like any community. It's just incredibly diverse. It has its own, subgroups and controversies, conflicts, and hopefully we've kind of presented, a slice of it, a diverse one, a gender diverse one, a diverse one racially, but you can never kind of hope to kind of represent the entire community. But what I guess the big take home for me was two things. Firstly was how so often in the hearing community, we can hide behind words. We don't really embody what we say. Whereas when you communicate with your body, you are embodying what you're saying in a visceral way. And the second thing that I just took away from it is how crazy it is that we live in such a segregated way between hearing and deaf. It's enriching for us to learn as hearing people to learn sign language, as I already mentioned. But I think that there's just such untapped potential within, mainstream culture, not just in my industry, but in so many industries, by overlooking the potential in the deaf community. So yeah, I think that it's beautiful that this film and every print that it's released in will be closed captioned so that hearing and deaf audiences can enjoy it side by side.
It was beautiful. It was beautifully done. It was beautifully shot. You and Olivia have a palpable chemistry that doesn't come every day. And that also was exquisite to watch. But that is my time. I thank you so much for taking time to talk to me today. I appreciate you. I adored your performance. I adored the film. And I'm looking forward to other people seeing it as well.
Thank you so much. It really means a lot to me. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll see you next time.
See you. Bye.
Bye. I was so shocked at how quiet and little Riz is when he talks, because his performance in that film is so magnanimous and so big in terms of content and what he brings to the role of Reuben. So thank you so much, Riz Ahmed. Sound of Metal is streaming on Amazon Prime right now. There's 3 other things I want to hit before I get out of here, you guys. There is I guess you could call it a documentary anthology series. It is directed by Steve McQueen. It's called Small Acts. And I talked about it a little earlier when I talked about that meal that I got from them. But Small Acts is based on the real life experiences of London's West Indian community and is set between 1969 and 1982. The first episode dropped on November 20th. Again, you guys, it's directed by Steve McQueen and it's called Mangrove and it's based on the Mangrove 9. The Mangrove was a restaurant in London, in the Notting Hill section of London, and they were harassed ridiculously by the police to the point where everybody ended up having to go to jail and being arrested. And it was a big, hot mess. But when I watched that, I was just like, I get so angry and so emotionally annoyed when I watch these projects over and over and over again, where they keep talking about what the content keeps addressing the fact that Black people are getting arrested, beaten, treated some kind of way for no other reason than the fact that they're Black. It's annoying. Stop it. That's all I have to say about that. But it is streaming on Amazon Prime right now. It's called Small Acts. The other thing I want to talk to you guys about is there's this other film that is and I don't have any graphics for this because I forgot, because I had so much content and stuff this week. I just was a little behind in things. But Collective is this film that is streaming. It's about the authoritarian regime in Romania, about the corruption with the elections there. It is like identical to what is happening here in the United States, but is happening in Bulgaria, in Romania. They call the Democrats over there social democrats. And basically it deals around, there was this nightclub fire over there where 27 people died and there were 180 burn victims. And the burn victims in the hospital were not being treated properly. The disinfectant that they were using was diluted 10 times over. So if you're diluting disinfectant 10 times over, is it really going to work? No. The most palpable image that I saw in that documentary was an image of someone who had passed away, a burn victim who had passed away. And there were cover your ears and your eyes when I say this, but there were maggots like crawling in and all around this dead person's ear. That's how much attention they were not paying to people. And that's how much disinfecting they were not doing in the hospitals there. There were burn victims with no fingers, charred faces, and skin trying to move forward. There was this really moving scene with this graveyard, where at the graveyard with the family of a victim that died, the tears streaming down their face. You guys, when people talk about COVID-19 here, it's real. There are real people attached to those numbers that you hear on television every night. But again, check out Collective. I will have the written review for all of these films on my site, thecurvyfilmcritic.com. Thecurvyfilmcritic.com. You can see the written version of all these reviews. And one other film I want to tell you about, I went to a thing called For the Love of Docs. And they showed a documentary called The House of Cardin about Pierre Cardin, who everybody assumes is French, but he actually was Italian. Pierre Cardin was thebomb.com because he worked with Jean-Paul Gaultier when he was 18. He was the first person to make a collection of clothes. He was the first person to take his name and put it on different products like cologne, locks, luggage, all that kind of stuff. And he had a love affair with somebody during a time where it wasn't okay to be out and gay. And he still kind of, deals with that. He really was quite interesting. So that's another documentary I want to tell you about that's streaming. It's called House of Cardin. So I think that does it. Let me address some of the things that y'all said in the chat room, because I was so busy reviewing and talking that I didn't get a chance to check it out. Yes, Brandon, Mickey Mouse did turn 92 years old. I think I posted something about Mickey having a birthday because I was there when he turned 90, my mom and I. So yes, happy birthday to Mickey and Minnie Mouse, because Mickey and Minnie Mouse are the same age. So happy birthday, Mickey and Minnie. the film that I talked about on Universal, it is not streaming on Disney Plus because it is a Universal film. It is video on demand on Thanksgiving Day, Michael B. The fire, it was an accident. It was in a nightclub. And in the documentary collective, it was an accidental fire where the ceiling caved in and everybody in there got burned. And 180 people were victims and only 32 of them died. Like, you know, it was a big tragedy. It was a huge tragedy. But yes, so you haven't heard that name in 100 years. You're talking about Pierre Cardin. Pierre Cardin, I know. But Pierre Cardin is a beast. And that documentary about him is quite interesting. So again, let me just run through the films that I talked about. I talked about Between the World and Me. I talked about The Croods 2. I talked about Small Acts, House of Cardin, Collective. And I think that's all of them. But check them out, you guys. And as usual, the written version of this will be on my site, thecurvyfilmcritic.com. Thank you so much for joining me for this edition, episode number 140 of The Curvy Critic with Carla Renata. I am your host. Give me a thumbs up to let me know you were here. I appreciate it. Click that bell for notifications. And I will see you next week. Next week, I will have, who will I have? Let's see. Oh, yeah, I got some good stuff next week. Next week is Thanksgiving, so happy Thanksgiving in advance. And then when we come back next Sunday, I'm going to have Mrs. Maisel herself, Rachel Brosnahan, my girl Marsha Stephanie Blake, and Arinze Kene from the film I'm Your Woman. I talked about that a little earlier at the AFI Festival. The documentary Zappa, and Loida Limbaugh, who is the director of another documentary called Through the Night about daycare in New York City during COVID. It was a mind blower, I promise you. So until the next time, stay safe, wash your hands, social distance, and I will see you on the flip side. Deuces.